you seen a ghost or are you interested in paranormal activity? Then don't miss this event. The Masked Ghost Hunters Paranormal Society will take you through a brief history and discuss their real-life experiences pursuing the paranormal. Along with their stories, they will share their best collected evidence and equipment used to seek out the paranormal in Massachusetts and in neighboring states. Join us in the spirited discussion and share some of your own stories too. So for those 50 of us or so, let's give a big round of applause. The second person I met Mark. This is off to a terrible start. I'm sorry, Mark. I don't know where Chris came from.
That's okay.
And Lauren too, obviously.
Chris is here with us now. He's coming to me. That's right. I'm 10% psychic.
There we go.
I'm not medium. I'm very much. Just hello. Hi guys, thanks for coming out tonight. I know that some don't have power, some do have power. I know that the weather almost worked against us here, but I think this area was spared a bit. So thank you guys for coming out. My name's Mark Arvilla. This is my fiance, Lauren Sheridan. We are part of Masked Ghost Hunters Paranormal Society, but together we do travel quite a bit, investigate quite a few people. So we came out to represent this evening. A little bit about myself. I founded Masked Ghost Hunters Paranormal Society about 10 years ago, and I did it because I had been curious about the paranormal. I had experiences as a kid that came to my recognition as I watched the paranormal show. How many guys watch? People look at it. How many people watch the paranormal TV shows? Okay, pretty healthy. Last night, like 2 people raised their hand, and at 50, I'm like, what? How many people believe in ghosts? How many people are here? We're at a paranormal discussion. I'm hoping everybody's got an open mind tonight. So I was watching the TV shows, and that's how I got into it. I was curious, and for me, it made me realize as a kid, some things happened to me. You know, doors slammed shut in the middle of winter. My parents told me it was the wind. Now as an adult, I go, it was the middle of winter. The doors were closed, the windows were closed. How did that door slam shut on me? So things like that now in my head, I realized I had some experiences as a kid. So it got a healthy curiosity going for me. I went out, checked it out, had some fun, got some evidence. I decided to start up Masked Ghost Hunters Paranormal Society. We're an investigative group that helps people. We go to families' homes, businesses, and we try to help them with paranormal problems, quote unquote. If they have something going bump tonight, we're there. So there are other groups that like to go out and do, you know, bigger venues. They like to go ghost hunting and try and have their own experiences that way. We do that too. You know, I call it recreational ghost hunting is what I do. So we walk both kind of avenues as far as that goes. But, you know, through all this, we've had a ton of experiences. So tonight what we'd like to do is I'd like to kind of, since some folks seem to watch the shows and other folks kind of believe in paranormal or are not quite certain, we're going to kind of walk you through a little brief history of how we got to where we are today as the paranormal in general. So, Lauren's dying. She has tuberculosis, so hopefully everybody has their shut up. She's not. But, so we're going to walk you through the history of the paranormal a little quickly tonight to where we are today with paranormal TV and stuff like that. Sound fair?
Fair.
Excellent. So,
I'll try not to die during the presentation.
So again, this is us, Masked Ghost Hunters Paranormal Society. This is our website. So if anybody's curious and wants to check it out, we do have more evidence and stuff like that on our website. We do a blog on there. Together, we also host Salem Con, which is a paranormal convention that we've held 5 years in a row in Salem, Massachusetts in April. We're skipping this year coming up in 2020, but we'll be bringing it back in 2021 as we have already set the date for it. So if you're interested in that and seeing more people, please come to our convention in April of 2021. That's me. So this is me. Not only am I the founder and lead investigator of Masked Ghost Hunters Paranormal Society, recently I've come out as a demonologist. And what I mean by that is, for the last 3 years I've been studying under one of the most renowned demonologists in the world, John Zaffis. And I am his apprentice. And recently he, at a convention that we were both at, I was doing my normal, just sort of Q&A lecture. And John, I saw everybody's eyes shift to the door. I looked over and there's John standing in the doorway. And he says, ask him about demonology, ask him who he's studying under, and he threw a hand grenade in the room and ran away. So because of that, I can now publicly come out as a demonologist. What does that mean? Demonology, if you look at the definition, is the study of demons or beliefs about demons, especially the methods used to summon and control them. And then we also talk a little bit about exorcism in there. Basically, I'm not a witch. I don't dabble in dark things. I need to learn about them. I need to learn what brings forth darkness and dark hauntings. And I try to help and assist in that. If an exorcism needed to occur, I'm a foot soldier in the front line of that. I go in, I conduct investigations, and I will help determine, by collecting evidence, whether something needs to be done beyond just a normal investigation and clearing of a house or something of that nature. It's big, dark, and scary, and it is really scary, to be quite honest with you. But I've embraced it. So, just a couple quick things here about what you may hear during the night, as far as definitions and stuff goes. Paranormal, I think that's, the true meaning of paranormal is something above the norm. So, we all know what normal is. You walk into your house, and your house feels normal. Above the norm is you walk into your house, and the drawer whips open, and the door slams behind you. That's paranormal, so it's above the norm. But they say in here it's denoting events of phenomena such as telekinesis or clairvoyance. It doesn't mention ghosts in there. It talks about telekinesis and clairvoyance. That's all in our mind. That's us doing stuff. So paranormal is a little more broad than just our minds doing a few things. What's the difference between a ghost and a spirit? A ghost, like we see on TV, we all want to see that ghost or apparition, is a physical form, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, of a ghost, of someone who's deceased or moved on. The spirit is the actual soul of the person. It's the actual essence that made that being. So it's going to carry more intelligence with it. I personally don't believe that we ever really encounter the spirit itself, the soul of a person. That moves on. That goes to where it's supposed to go. I believe that we deal with residual energies left behind from our bodies. So sorry. I feel so bad for her. I believe we deal with residual energy left behind. And that's what we interact with on a daily basis when we're doing our investigating. When we hear a knock on the wall, it's not somebody's soul. Dad's not going to knock on the wall. Dad's going to, do something a little different to you. But his energy, his residual energy, may do something like that. So, but that's the difference really between what we talk about ghosts and spirits, what the ghost and the spirit is. How many people see the movie Poltergeist? Wow, okay. I thought a lot more of us would have seen Poltergeist, but okay. So in the movie Poltergeist, right, they built the house or the neighborhood on an old Indian burial ground, and but they never moved the bodies and never moved the stones. Oh my God, all this stuff started going crazy in the house. The running belief today with poltergeist activity is not ghosts or spirits. Today, the understanding with poltergeist activity, which means noisy spirit in translation, is that the majority of it is caused, women, I'm very sorry about this, by prepubescent girls, pubescent girls, and menopausal women. It's your body's energy that's causing this to happen. Now, do you just sit down and read the newspaper and all of a sudden the cabinets fly open because your body's energy is going crazy and your hormones are going? No. But if there's a spirit present, it can manipulate that energy to do things like that. So I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot me for that. But that's what the belief is today, is that it's the prepubescent, pubescent girls and menopausal women. Their hormones and their energy combined help feed activity into the house. How many people are watching the new Ghost Hunters that's come back to TV? Okay, a few of us are. Did you see the episode at the Hanover, PA, with Deanna Simpson and her house, where her house is empty now? And I'm seeing blanks there, so apparently we didn't see this episode. But they went in and they were investigating, they got zero activity. Nothing was going on in the house. They had a thought, maybe it's Deanna. They brought Deanna into the house, and activity went off the charts. The investigators became affected, they got sick, their meters started going off, the sound started happening in the house. They removed Deanna, and activity died again, and nothing happened. And this is over a couple of days, this is not in one evening. So, this helped kick into that theory visually on TV now, that this woman, menopausal woman, was brought into the house, and the activity went through the charts when she was there. Took her out. Now, can we ourselves just be a catalyst for activity? 100%. I think, you take a battery out of a toy, it doesn't work. You put the battery back in the toy, it works again. It's the same thing. We can be the battery. That one person can just elicit the activity in a location rather than just, hey, there's just ghosts in the house. They might be there, but what caused them to kick up now and not 20 years ago? Well, here's the battery that did it. So, some of our equipment we have displayed over here on the table. Do we know what the term EMF means? Yeah. Yep, electromagnetic field. Okay, for those who don't know, those are naturally occurring in the environment. There are electromagnetic fields everywhere. Why we take a look at them or try to read them is because over time again, through the experiments run, when there is spirit activity or ghost activity in a house, a lot of times the electromagnetic fields or EMF fields kick up and they increase. And whether it's the spirit itself causing them or manipulating the environment around it to make that spike, these are devices that we can use. Now, this device here, the millimeter, which we have over here on the table, that's this one here. It gives you visual numbers. You can see the numbers rise, raise, and lower on a millimeter. Those numbers going up means that the electromagnetic field is increasing. If you get just that, that's not evidence. I hate to say it, I watch the TV shows. You see the numbers rise on Zach Bagan's millimeter. He goes crazy. Aaron gets scared, runs out of the room. For those of you who watch pictures, right? There's a demon, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Just because you have a raise in EMFs does not mean there's a ghost present. You get a raise in EMF. You capture an electronic voice on a digital recorder, and maybe something in the photo appears. Now you've got to look at it all together and say, okay, that all made sense because each device had something that caused evidence at that moment. That's a little more, so you can hang your hat on that. One thing about these devices, REM pod is sort of the opposite of those other two devices. The one in the middle, the REM pod, has an antenna that emits electromagnetic field around that antenna, static emission around the antenna. When you get close to the antenna, the 4 lights will begin to light up. It'll tell you from which direction it's coming from. When you grab the antenna, it's all lit up red and there's a steady buzzing sound or buzzer sound on that. It's the complete opposite of those other detectors. This is when we bring the field into that static around the antenna that causes it to alert. So there's 2 different ways we try to interact with spirits and say, hey, can you come over to this device in the middle of the room and touch it for us? I'll touch the device. It doesn't hurt me. Look, it doesn't hurt. Come and touch it. And this is a way that we can interact and see. A lot of times they don't like to be around, so you can put it off in the corner of the room and walk away and give them an opportunity to approach it at their own pace when we're conducting the investigation. Spirit box, and my favorite piece of equipment, the Panasonic DR60. Who watches Ghost Adventures? Whoa, nobody watches, okay, a couple people in the corner watch Ghost Adventures. So a lot of the TV shows today are using the Panasonic DR60, this digital recorder. No. Doing this going to work. Didn't want to work last night for me. I don't know why. So, nobody really makes digital recorders for investigating. Okay? This thing doesn't want to work right now. Ah, fixed it. Kind of, no, didn't. So nobody's making digital recorders for investigators. These are all made for college students, reporters, people that need to have dictation, okay? You take your recorder, you hold it up, you ask your ghost to talk to you. Why they do, I have no idea. Why the recorders capture them, no idea. We have theories, but we truly don't know. The theory that I like to go with is that it's the frequency that they're trying to communicate with us on. You need vocal cords to make sound. Okay? You need to have energy to make sound. You can clap your hands, you can, if you have a vacuum, there's no way for the sound to travel, there's no air to travel, you're not going to get a sound. So how does a spirit make words without vocal cords? I don't know, but I wish I did. But with these recorders, they can talk to us sometimes, and sometimes we will hear things that we don't hear with our ears, and this just doesn't want to work. Took my hand out. But this particular recorder only records when it hears sound. So if you turn it on, you hit record, and you don't say anything, it's not going to record. You talk, it will record, you pause, it stops recording. So the reason that we use this is because we can control this EVP session, or electronic voice phenomenon, where we're trying to communicate with spirits. You turn the recorder on, you ask a question, and then you wait 15 seconds. You leave dead space. You ask another question, 15 more seconds. So the idea here is, when you play it back, if there's no spirits present, all you should hear is question, 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 you're done. You don't hear any answers. That dead space you leave in between, if you capture something in there, and you know nobody in the room's talking, now you better really look back at that and say, what could that have been? Yes, a lot of times we'll hear stuff and then we have to dismiss it because we remember, oh, somebody in the room is talking, things like that. But this recorder only catches those audible tones when you speak. Its playback quality is terrible. I wish I could get it to work. I don't know why it's not working. I'm getting kind of upset about it. But so, why do I talk about this? I can take my other digital recorder that I have here, that I mentioned earlier. And remember, I'm a skeptical believer, guys. This is my original digital recorder. We were at the firehouse in Salem, Massachusetts during opportunity that we had to investigate with Nick Roth. And we were in this little crawl space in the building. And I dropped my recorder and I put it up on a pipe. And I was recording the entire session we were doing. Nick had his Panasonic DR60 with him. And he asked a question. And the response that he got when we played it back and listened to it was a gentleman came back and said, I'm exhausted now. Full sentence, I'm exhausted now. He looked at me, it was myself and one other guy in the room. The other guy, his voice wasn't even close to this one, and this one almost sounded like me. So I went, I know better than to say that during an EVP session. Why would I speak that? I go home, I listen to my digital recorder. When he asked that question, there was nothing on my recorder. There was dead air. It wasn't until on my recorder that I was listening to the playback of his recorder that then it said, I'm exhausted now. So why were there two recorders in the room at the same time recording the same thing? And this one captured it, and this one didn't. Other than the frequency that they record at and capture it exactly. That's why I think it's the frequencies that they come through. This is like gold. These things right now, this was probably $20 when it was brand new. They stopped making it because the playback quality is terrible. They go on eBay now for like $800 to $1,000. And they're not even new. They're used, and you might get a little. I didn't pay that for this, but that's where it comes into. We as a pseudoscience cannot recreate the activity that we experience. That's why we'll never be a science. We'll never be, anything that's recognized as a legitimate science. But we can start to form our theories, and if people like yourself want to hear about them and believe in them, you can get an idea of maybe why something works for one person and not for the other person. So the equipment that we use, I don't think it's better than what they were using back in the day when we started doing it, but we're just learning more about it, so we're trying more things. So anyway, that was my long talk about recorders. So I mentioned earlier we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the paranormal and what got us to where we are today right now. And to do that, we have to start with this gentleman right here, Harry Price. Harry Price was like the first ghost hunter. He was the guy that said, you know what, there's some weird stuff happening. Now back in this time, 1881, 1948, we're right around that end of the spiritual movement that was going on, where everybody was basically, you had your religion and that's what life was based on, okay? Now, Harry Price was in that era towards the end of it, and there was a lot of psychic mediums out there. People that believe that they can communicate with spirits, and that's the only way that you could get an idea of what was going on with, quote unquote, the other side, or my sister who passed away, or this guy that passed away, is you went to a medium and they said, well, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. But what about the ones who weren't telling you the truth? Well, Harry Price, who was a British psychic researcher and author, he was investigating cyclical phenomena. So it wasn't just ghosts, he was investigating cyclical phenomena, things like telekinesis and stuff like that. He worked to expose the fraudulent mediums and psychics. So he was going out trying to prove that not all of them were telling you the truth, that some of them were maybe fibbing a little bit, and there are ways to do that. He wrote a book back in 1936 called Confessions of a Ghost Hunter. This is the first time we see the term ghost hunter brought up and used, is when Harry Price did it. After Harry Price, the next most recognizable gentleman that we can bring forward is Hans Holzer. How many people are watching the Holzer Files now on TV? 1, 2 people in the entire room. Okay.
It's new, it's new, it's new.
This is not a testimonial of the paranormal television that's going on today. Hans Holzer is basically, for us, the first American ghost hunter, okay? Born in 1920 to 2009. There's now a TV show called The Holzer Files. His daughter, Alexandra Holzer, has found Dad's lost files. That's a good base for the story. But Alexandra has found Dad's lost files, and they're revisiting them. Why would you want to revisit it? Why would you want to revisit Hans's cases? Why would you want to go and do that? Well, because nobody's talked about it for a while. We're seeing all the stuff they're doing. So what happened? Well, Hans, he was an American paranormal researcher. He wrote more than 120 books on the paranormal. And you guys don't know who he is. I don't get it. But most of us have them in our collection. He actually started by studying archaeology and history at the University of Vienna, and then he moved here to the States to escape the war. So back in 1938, he got out, came to the US, and he wrote his first book called
Ghost Hunter.
Ghost Hunter in 1963. There's that term again, Ghost Hunter. So he hosted a television show also called Ghost Hunter. Ghost Hunter. Oh, there's no period. Now, he coined the term the other side, and one of his most highest profile cases was the Amityville case. How many people know the case in Amityville, New York? There was a movie, here we go, now again, here we go. There was a movie called Amityville Horror, right? Don't watch it again, you'll be so disappointed. We went back and watched it a couple weeks ago and went, oh my God, these special effects are terrible. But, at the time, Amityville Horror was something pretty crazy because it was based off of a true story. There was a family that was living in the house and supposedly their father was possessed and he killed his whole family. Sorry, excuse me. A family moved in later on called the DeFeos. The DeFeos came in, living in the house for a while. All of a sudden, they wanted to get out of the house. They were having horrible things happening. They claimed there was a demonic entity present. Enter Hans Holzer. Hans comes in with a psychic medium. They investigate the house. They find some stuff, but for them it wasn't anything too tremendous. After Hans comes in and does his thing and checks it out, now what's next? Oh, I'll get to the other one next. Haha, I was speaking to my slide, sorry. So, Hans comes in, does the investigation, doesn't find a ton of stuff. We're going to shift our talk a little bit here now. I'm going to say a prayer again. No, I'm just kidding. Today, I talked a little bit about being a demonologist. I'm talking about Amityville right now. When you get into cases, you never know what you're going to walk into. We can get a call from somebody, hey, we got this thing happening. We can go in and have a completely different experience. And all heck can break loose. The unfortunate thing is, somebody living with a haunting or somebody living in their home and there's activity going on, they're living with it on a daily basis. They're not trying to communicate or contact. We may come in and try and make that communication and contact and spark something up that didn't need to be poked a little bit. But we have to help the family. We've got to kind of go in there. So before we investigate, whenever we're doing it, during, after, we always sort of say some sort of a prayer to protect ourselves. And for Roman Catholics, that would be St. Michael. You can pray and do whatever you want. If you're Buddhist, if you're Jewish, if you're Zoroastrian, you can do whatever you want and whoever you believe in. As long as you have faith, it's going to help you. So it doesn't matter. Just for us, this is what I use before and after investigations. Always protecting ourselves. Which leads me to Ed and Lorraine Moore. So I mentioned Ed and Lorraine a little earlier when I was talking about John Zaffis, their nephew. Who knows who the Warrens are?
Gary.
Okay. Who has seen the movie The Conjuring? Okay. Not as many. Wow, I'm surprised. So Ed and Lorraine investigated the house in Harrisville, Rhode Island, which has now become called the Conjuring House. They also investigated Amityville. They came in after Hans had come in the house in Amityville. They were called in, and they did an investigation, and their findings were a little different than Hans's findings. They discovered that to them, the house was infested with demons, and they needed to have an exorcism done on the home. They brought a priest in, the priest exorcised the house, they did a blessing. That was it. The house was back on the market, the house got sold, and supposedly the people after that didn't have any activity happening. Now, Who knows if they did or didn't, they just don't speak about it if they have, or whatever. Now people will say, well, how could that happen? How can you have a property that drove one guy nuts, they killed his family, drove another family out of it, claiming demonic possession. These people come in, and a priest comes in, does a blessing, and now it's fine. And nothing has happened to this new family since then. From the battery, take the battery out of the toy, it doesn't work, put the battery back in the toy, it works. That battery, that particular energy with those families is out, and there's a good family in there now. But Ed and Lorraine, Ed is a demonologist. Lorraine, Ed was a demonologist. Lorraine was a very, very powerful psychic medium. And the two of them together were like Batman and Robin. But I don't know. They would go in, they'd hit these really dark, high-profile cases. If they needed to, they'd bring the Catholic Church in, because a demonologist will never perform an exorcism. They'll assist in them, but they'll never perform them. And they bring the church in, and boom, they'd help people. All of these people that we've talked about are super controversial, by the way. Always, the Ed and Lorraine, people try to tear them down, even now that they're both passed on, they still try to tear them down. Hans Holzer, people try to tear him apart when he was alive. Harry Price, same thing. They're all charlatans, they're all fakes, they're all phonies, they're all looking to make a dollar. None of those people ever charged a dime to anybody when they went in their houses. Hans Holzer didn't charge people to go to their homes and help them. Ed and Lorraine never charged the families that they helped when they went into their houses. So what's their gain? What's their benefit? They were probably, of all these, the most highest profile to come up. Ed and Lorraine were the ones who went to TV stations. They were like Sally, Jesse, Raphael, whatever. They would go out there and put themselves out there. And they did it because Ed said, I want people to see that what we do is real, and what we experience is real, and what we go through. And he was the first one to sort of, push the buttons. He pushed that envelope for paranormal investigation. Who's seen Annabelle? Who knows who Annabelle is? A few people. This is the movie Annabelle. This is the real Annabelle. Who would be afraid of Raggedy Ann? So I bring up Annabelle because this is who the Lorraines are. This is what makes the Lorraines. The Lorraines. This is what makes the Warrens. This is what makes the Warrens so popular in today. They had a museum called the Warren Occult Museum down in Monroe, Connecticut. Their daughter and son-in-law still run the museum today, although it's not open to the public at the moment. Hopefully they will open it again. This doll is on display in the museum. Who's Annabelle? Way back when, some girls had this doll, and when they were coming home, they were finding the doll in different places in the house. So this is a big doll. This is like, always stands about this tall. It's a big Raggedy Ann doll. The doll was moving about the house, and one was bringing the other. The two people were blaming each other all the time. You did it, or you did it. No, you're messing with me. No. The doll was determined to be possessed by the spirit of a little girl named Annabelle. Now, later on, it was believed that it was not just Annabelle. Annabelle was a trick, and that it was actually a demon possessing the doll. This doll was writing crayon on things. I don't know, it doesn't have fingers or anything, but it was using crayon to write. And this was happening to these girls and this guy. And so much so that it was really harming their lives. And Lorraine came in, they took possession of the doll, they did a blessing, and things calmed down for the people. So how does a box contain a demonic spirit? How does that happen? The box itself has many different things on it. The box is blessed and sealed. A priest comes into the Warrens Museum once a month at least and blesses the museum. This goes on all the time. You can't just have one. It happens over and over and over again. Constantly, this doll is under protection. The most astounding story that happened with the doll was after it was in Ed and Lorraine's possession. A priest and friend of theirs came over from Hartford, Connecticut, Hartford Archdiocese. He came over to visit. Ed was somewhere else in the house. Lorraine brought him in. And he said, can I see this doll, this famous Annabelle? So she brought it out. They had the doll, and the priest took the doll, and he grabbed it and says, I don't believe in you. You're not real. You have no control over anyone. And throws the doll across him. Lorraine starts freaking out. What have you done? Ed comes running in. What did you do? You're not supposed to touch it. I told you not. It's not real. There's no demon with this, blah, blah, blah. And the priest leaves. On the ride back to his church, on the ride back to the rectory, the priest was in a severe car accident and almost died. This story, would he have been in an accident if he hadn't done that to the doll? Who knows? We can't go back and change history and find out. But it happened. So it leads into the legend of Annabelle and builds that legend of Annabelle. So, I won't touch it. I won't go near it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. What is it? I'm good. I don't want to push that.
This is a very basic question. You define the difference between a ghost and a spirit. You can speak on what you consider a demon versus a ghost.
Absolutely.
Can you repeat the question?
Yep. So the question is, we talked a little bit about ghost versus spirit. So what's the difference between a demon and a ghost, basically? Okay? A demon is something that's never lived. Okay? If you want to, let's break it down even further and call it human versus inhuman. So an inhuman entity, demon, elemental, things like that, has never walked the earth in our form. It's energies. If you want to become religious, then demons are the devil's work. They're the minions of the devil. If you want to take religion away from it, they're just evil energies that exist. And just like there's good things that we have, there's always bad. There's a ton of balance in everything. Otherwise, there is no balance. So you have to have good with the bad, evil with light, dark with light, things like that. Demons are inhuman, dark entities that they, if you want to use it loosely, just enjoy wreaking havoc and mayhem and creating problems for us. So, is a demon going to possess a dog? Can a demon influence possess a human? Yes. And that's because we have our, we have free thought, we have our ability to, have our own belief system.
It can trick us.
And it can trick us. Most commonly, demons will trick people in life by mimicking the spirit of a young girl. Because I can tell you through experience, when you hear the voice of a little girl in a digital recorder or with your ears, you're very touched by that. Your whole defense mechanism just breaks down and you feel very sad and sorrow. And that's what happens when people hear a little girl, maybe a little boy, but typically for whatever reason, it seems to always be a little girl. And it's tricky. I'm not saying every little girl spirit that we hear interact with is demon, but this does happen. So, essentially, human versus demon. Ghosts are human, demons, elementals, things like that are okay. Good question. I talked about The Conjuring, right? Did we ask who's seen The Conjuring? Yep, okay. This is the real family. So the movie The Conjuring, big Hollywood movie, there's a real family behind this. This is the Perron family. And Andrea, one of the younger daughters, she's not the youngest daughter, but Andrea does go around speaking about what happened to her family down in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Who's not familiar with the Conjuring movie or the Conjuring universe? Okay. Brief snapshot. Family moves into a house down in Harrisville, Rhode Island, and almost from the get-go, has nothing but terrible things happening to them. Things inside the house are affecting the family. There's inability to sleep. There's dark figures in the home, possession, things like that. There's people getting sick. They're unable to heat the house. It's always cold. There's just on and on and on. But there are dark energies and entities around the home and on the property around the home. And this family can't leave because they can't afford to leave because they sunk everything they had into this house. And it just tears the whole family down. And eventually they're ostracized from their church and everything that's going on in their home. And they leave. And then eventually they do have to leave the house. It's a real story. Ed and Lorraine have been in there. A lot of local, I say local because they're New England based, but a lot of local demonologists and churches and everybody's been in and out of that house blessing the home. And it was vacant for a little bit. It's passed hands a few times. Most recently, it has just been sold. The previous owner claimed it for a while that she didn't have activity, but through sources, she has had activity before in the past. And now a new couple have bought it, who are involved in the paranormal. People who actually bought it knowing the history of the house. And now a bunch of TV shows have come in and out of there. They only had it for like 3 months, and I think 4 different shows have been in and out of there. And at the house, we've had the opportunity to go in there a few weeks ago, and it's crazy haunted. And I don't know if it's necessarily haunted by demons, but it's doesn't feel nice in there. It's a pretty scary place to go in for a cute little farmhouse with tons of
There
land.
was nothing like the house of the movie.
Nothing.
Absolutely
Nothing like that. But there's a real family behind that. That's the story of the parents. If you ever get a chance to hear Andrea speak, she comes around a bit and does some lectures, so she's down in Florida for that. Do you want to talk?
I can relieve you for a little bit.
Yeah.
I can-
Try the microphone.
So, talking about the investigators and the people the researchers that kind of brought forth ghost hunting and paranormal, now we're going to kind of delve into some of the psychics and psychic mediums, things like that. So, Edgar Casey, who was born in 1877, died in 1945, was one of the very first, what we call physical mediums. And he was dubbed, I guess you could say, the sleeping prophet and psychic diagnostician. Edgar, at a very young age, lost his grandfather, the death of his grandfather, and soon after that, started seeing his grandfather. So from a very young age, he and his family realized that he had these like psychic supernatural powers. They weren't really sure whether he was making it up. He was only like 4 years old, you know. But as time went on, more and more things started happening to him where it became more evident that he had psychic abilities. He never made it past the 8th grade. Okay, he was an avid Sunday school teacher. He went to church like 5 days a week. He read the Bible every year, starting at the age of 10 till the day he died. He read the Bible every day. When he was about 23 years old, he was working as an insurance salesman. He was struck with laryngitis. So bad to the point that he couldn't speak at all. He had to quit his job and move home. So for about a year, he lived home with his family, and during this time, he interned as a photography assistant at a local studio. About a year into it, about like a year after this happened, right, about a year later, his laryngitis was getting worse and worse and worse. He went to see multiple doctors. They couldn't figure out what was going on. A hypnotist that had come to town said, "Let me try and put you in a hypnotic state. Maybe we can figure it out." You know, that was something I guess that happens with hypnotism. I mean, people use that nowadays to quit smoking and things like that. So he tried to put him in a trance. Didn't work. Another local doctor said, "Let me try. I know him. Maybe I can help get him into that deep state." He was successfully able to get him into the trance, during which time Edgar diagnosed himself. Diagnosed what was his illness and how to cure it. Doctors said no, it worked. He got his voice back. From that point on, he started doing readings for this doctor's patients. So that's where his first reading started. His first reading was on himself. His final reading was on himself. And between 1901 and 1944, he did, 22,000 readings. They weren't systematically recorded until he hired his secretary, Gladys Davis, in 1923. And every single reading that he has done that has been recorded is available at the Association for Research and Enlightenment. They are on your website. If you become a member, you have access to all of these records. You have access to everything. Since I've been sick, I've been reading his Encyclopedia of Healing, because there's all kinds of things in here. Some of them are a little far-fetched, but especially for colds, like things to eat, what to drink.
The other day, one was asking me, "Do we have kerosene?"
I was like, I'm looking up common cold, I'm like, do we have kerosene? Can we mix that with?
No.
But some of the things were a little far-fetched, but at the time, you have to understand that, this was all very new, and while he's giving these readings, there were doctors that almost didn't want to believe that this could be real, but they were realizing that the cures that he was giving were absolutely normal, that they all worked. Something else that was kind of amazing about him, the third line out of his abilities, prophesying, astral projection, mediumship, seeing reading Akashic records, which is essentially like the book of life. So he could go back and tell you, like, you were alive during the time of Christ, you were alive during like the Great Flood, or things like that. Astral projection, he would be able to hear a name and an address, okay, like Mary from Oklahoma, and he would be able to go into his trance and find her physically, find out where she lived. He could describe her house, her bedroom, what animal she had. He could describe her body, what she was wearing. He could describe her inner organs, what was wrong, and how how to go about curing this, to the point where doctors were like, how does a man with an 8th grade education know the human anatomy this well? It's almost like too good. So good that Harry Houdini decided he was going to try and prove him fraudulent, and spent a weekend with him, came out saying, I can't do it.
Speaking of which, who knows Harry Houdini? Okay, good. We'll still wait.
We know that he tried a lot of it, like Harry Price, he tried to expose the fakes. He couldn't expose Edgar. And as you can see on the bottom, he gave readings for other famous people. So many people booked him. He would get like thousands of letters a month, to the point where he was, at one point in time, he was booked 6 months out and doing more readings a day than he should have been doing. And eventually that took a toll on his health. He had a stroke and then he died 3 months later. But Woodrow Wilson, huh?
So it should see that.
Hey! Woodrow Wilson. Wow. Thomas Edison, Irving Berlin, George Gershwin, among others, those are the people that he did these for. And it ranged from everything. He didn't just do the physical readings, but because he believed that his gift was from God, that it shouldn't be taken for granted or used for anything other than good. So if you came to him and said, I need a reading, he would say, well, what are you going to do with the information? And how are you going to change your life? And are you going to be, are you going to do good with the information that I give you? Yes, you have cancer, but if I cure you, are you going to go out and keep gambling and cheating on your wife and doing all these other things? And it was the same with everything. They wanted to know, like, stock market prices, and they, stock market numbers, and they would know, am I going to be successful? Things like that. And he was very harsh with people, but to the same end, he did it because he believed that he was given this gift from God and that that's what he should do. So, that's it. Very interesting. And now, the living ones.
Do you guys recognize anybody else? Anybody?
Who do you recognize?
Anybody's hair or nails? Anyone on the screen at all? So today, the psychic medium is a lot different, right? We're not Edgar Casey, who was a doctor and a professor with his glasses and his suit. We're Teresa Caputo with the nails and the hair, and Chip Coffey with his scarves. James Van Praagh, his flamboyant, his outgoing personality. And Amy Allen, who is like probably the closest thing to the person that you might be sitting next to on a bus or something like that, but sees the craziest stuff in the world. Who out of this group of four, who do you guys recognize the most?
The hair.
The hair. Teresa? Yeah, Teresa, of course. She's everywhere. The Long Island medium, right? She's all over the TV, she does all these lectures. They're awesome people. They're all like super awesome people to see and know, and they all can come from that lineage, like coming down from Edgar Casey, though. Edgar was transcendental. Is that what it is? Transcendental medium, transmedium.
He was physical, but Edgar was like one of a kind. He had everything.
Yeah.
Where somebody, Amy is very much a physical medium, so she will feel what that entity felt. Someone was stabbed to death, she'll feel the knife. Someone was burned, she'll feel the heat, things like that. Teresa and James and Chip are more of like, Teresa hears and can envision. James sees. He'll see physically, he'll see the entity. And he hears them too. And then Chip, I think Chip is more hearing and seeing. So there's different, they all have different abilities that work out to bring out the same information, essentially.
The biggest thing today is that we've entered an area, and the next slide I think speaks out too. We've entered an area now where it's paranormal entertainment. We've gone a little bit away from these people who sort of laid the groundwork for paranormal investigators. Harry Price, out to Hans Holzer, basically kind of wrote sort of the formula for how we do our investigations today. Hans Holzer is a guy that was like, you go out, you got to get a baseline reading for things that are happening for activity, then you have to do this. He sort of laid it out so that when we go on an investigation, we use basically the Holzer method, we call it, when we do it. And that's the recipe that investigators use today. These psychic mediums basically use the recipe that was written by Edgar Casey. They use that recipe of how are you going to do? What's the message you're trying to get over to someone? Are you going to give them the lottery numbers? None of these guys are giving you the lottery numbers, but none of these guys are going to give you the lottery numbers. They're going to help you. They're going to try and help you communicate or help you move to the next step in your life after you get their message. And it is, what's next? When I tell you what's going on, where do you go from here? And, you know, I love watching the Dead Files. I think, who was I talking about the Dead Files earlier? Yeah, we were talking about the Dead Files earlier. And I love watching the Dead Files because at the end, there's a resolution. They tell the family how to help themselves. They empower you and say, if you want to still live in this house, you have to do this, this, and this. And then Steve will look at them and say, well, are you going to do it? Are you going to do what Amy said? And they go, oh, yeah. 30% of them do. The other ones, once they leave, they go, oh, it's too difficult. I really want to have to find a shaman and find this. I thought the TV show was going to do it for me. They can't. You have to do it. You have to. It has to be you. So, but this is, if you don't know James Van Praagh, who has ever seen the TV show The Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt? All right, James Van Praagh was a producer, a writer. He basically wrote the concept for The Ghost Whisperer. And he said, this is the show. This is how it's going to be done because it's going to be done the right way. So it's pretty true when you see The Ghost Whisperer. And then we have Paranormal Entertainment. We have Leonard Nimoy. We talked about Leonard Nimoy earlier. This is In Search Of. It's probably the show that got most paranormal investigators, or most of us, curious about UFOs and the paranormal and Bigfoot and cryptids and stuff like that. In Search Of, with Leonard Nimoy. That opened the door up for all these other guys, for Jay Grant on Ghost Hunters. Ghost Hunters revolutionized the stuff that we do today. It brought everything to the forefront and made it kind of popular and okay to investigate the paranormal, to go and say you investigate the paranormal. The Ghost Adventures guys, they had to kick the door in and went, wait a minute, these guys over here, they're going to people's houses, they might catch a DVP or something. Let's go find an empty asylum. Let's go to an old hospital or something, or jail. Let's go find the nastiest of the nasty. Let's see what they have to say. Completely opposite of those guys. It worked for both of them. You know, both of these TV shows, if you don't know what Ghost Adventures is, these guys here, when Ghost Hunters came out and said, hey, we're Ghostbusters, basically. You know, we do this for a living, we're going to people's houses. The Ghost Adventures guys went, wow, that's really cool. Nick Roth, on the left, decided that he wanted to go and try and prove the paranormal was real. Through conversations, he recruited Zach and Aaron, and the three of them on their own dime went out all over like the southwest area to these old mines and mining towns and stuff. And they said, let's prove and make a documentary that ghosts exist. They shot that documentary for 3 years during the time that Ghost Hunters was on TV. Before the Travel Channel took a look at it and said, we'll run your documentary as a special. And they did. And they blew the top off the Travel Channel. You got on a TV show. And you know, here we are 10 years later or whatever it is, and they're like the #1 paranormal show on TV, period. And they're like top dog at Travel Channel because they wanted to prove that it was surreal. And now, I'm so disappointed that more people don't know who John is. Who knows who John Zaffis is? Okay. There was a TV show years ago called Haunted Collector. That was John. John was the Haunted Collector. Okay? He's much more than just a Haunted Collector. He's the godfather of the paranormal. He's my mentor. He's a super dear friend and an amazing person. And it's a shame that he's not recognized more out there. But this,
he hides in plain sight.
he does. John is the nephew of Ed and Lorraine Warren. Those cases we talked about earlier, The Conjuring, not anymore. But there's a lot. The Haunting in Connecticut. Who's ever seen the movie The Haunting in Connecticut? That was John's case. That was The Haunting in Connecticut was John's case. And he traveled all over the world with Ed and Lorraine, you know, under Ed's wing and learning how to be a demonologist. And you know, we didn't talk about this yesterday, but I'll talk about it in just a moment, a little bit more, and then we'll open up for some questions and stuff like that. Guys, we're almost done. Thank you for hanging in there. Couple evidence slides.
Yeah, but when something funny about John is when he's just a haunted collector, that's what he does. People will give him
Haunted items.
haunted items, and they will just leave them on his lawn. It is the funniest thing. He'll come home and there'll be like boxes and bags, and he's like, well, what the hell is this? And it's just random pieces.
True story. First time we went to go visit John, he's like, hey, stop by my house. We're like, okay, we're just down in the area, so we stop by. We go over. And we pull up the driveway, very unassuming house. We're walking in, and on his front yard is a green trash bag that stands about this tall. Green trash bag. And we go in like, what's the trash bag? Just joking, man, what's the trash bag? Somebody leave something. He's like, oh, Jesus, that's from the case last night. He goes outside, opens it up, and there's this crazy looking doll in there and stuff like that. He's like, I gotta leave it out in the sun for a while. And we're like, oh, you really brought stuff in the yard here. Because he was like, they left something in. So, I wanted here at the end, we're going to show a couple slides of some of the stuff that we've captured. Nothing major. We don't do any audio, I should have told that at the beginning. Simply we've learned over time when we do audio, in a room like this, it doesn't sound good, and inevitably you're not going to hear what we heard, or you may hear nothing at all. So, no audio. So many people will look at this and expect, because we're a paranormal group, we're going to put pictures of orbs up. I'm here to tell you it's not orbs. This is dust. Yes, orbs do exist. I said it. You can ostracize me from the paranormal, I don't care. Orbs exist. Orbs are those things you see in photos once in a while that show up as a ball of light. Most pictures that have orbs in them are dust or bugs. It just is. I hate it because we get them all the time, and then I have to tell somebody that's what it is, and then they hate me for it, but it's the truth. This is dust. We took this picture, and I wanted to put it up there because so many orb photos look like this, and all it is dust. The light from the camera is reflecting back off of it, it's dust.
Remember, this is a dusty old moldy basement,
Yeah,
so.
absolutely,
It's part of it.
absolutely. But sometimes, it's not dust. Another photo that we took in the Irish Mist in Shore, New York, which was an old pub downstairs. The rest of it was an empty warehouse. This photo is nothing. You see a stairway, a door, and a wall. Same picture, maybe an inch off to the left now, and this mist is entered the photo. Taken consecutively, basically, as the gentleman was snapping the photos off. I can't explain that. That's not dust. That's not an orb, if you will. That is a mist or smoke that's entered the photo. This was a crazy night for us. During this night, in this place that had mild activity reported, remember I said earlier we never know what we're going to get when we go into somewhere? This was one of those places. We thought we were going in because some people had some weird stuff happening around the bar or in the back or something like that. It's hard to see, but if you look at her neck,
Back where that birthmark
right
is.
near her birthmark, there's 3 scratches on her neck. This was our friend MJ, which you'll see in another photo in a moment. By the end of this night, MJ was scratched on her neck, on her chest, and on her arm. I was scratched on my arm in the shape of a cross, oddly.
That was
Lauren was scratched on her face. Mike got scratched on his head. So we all were scratched that night. And we didn't, and none of that was anticipated. This was something we, like I said, we went in thinking we were going in on a normal, hey, we've got some weird things happening. And then next thing you know, all heck broke loose.
also none of it was demonic.
Yes. None of it was demonic. What we surmised by the end of this was simply that, I'm going to show you guys a real quick visual on this, okay? We're listening, Spirit's trying to talk to us, okay? This is how I believe most scratches happen. Imagine Lauren's wearing headphones. She's listening to music. I have entered the room. And I go, hey, Lauren. 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 Right? Got her attention when I touched her. Okay? Spirit's yelling at me. You don't hear it. This ghost is yelling at me. Hey, I'm here. Over here, Tommy. Tommy, over here. Over here. Guy, I'm over here. Oh, what the heck? Well, I got your attention, didn't he? Now, how's he going to, next time a spirit or a ghost tries to interact with you, what are they probably going to do? They're going to touch you. Our bodies happen to react to that physical contact by causing scratches, by causing these welts or red marks. That's why it's not, just because you get 3 scratches doesn't mean they're mocking the Trinity, it's a demon, oh my God. No, they made contact with you, it touched you. And you react, your body has to react in a certain way.
Most of the time, I get one single scratch. I don't think I've ever had 3. I get like 1.
I
So,
don't think that's what that was.
but that was different.
So that's no, the scratches, that's what I believe. So I told you to see MJ again, this is MJ right here. MJ dresses like a 50s pinup model, she's hilarious, she's awesome. This is Steve, this is Don, this is Dave, who's the ghost at this house, and there's a gentleman named Glenn taking the picture, and Glenn's wife's over here. Tomorrow and I haven't even arrived yet towards this location. Do you see something in that picture? Do you want me to point it out to you? So on the next slide, do you see the closet? You see the figure in the closet? Notice how it blocks the closet door? They didn't see it when they took that photo. Nobody was reacting to it. Glenn snapped a picture of everybody else sitting there talking. And he didn't even see it until later on when he was looking back at the photos. And this is one, I love this one, because this is at Houghton Mansion on North Adams, Mass. This is where I had my first investigation about this digital recorder on my way out there. I love that building. It is crazy haunted, like crazy haunted. But that, nobody saw it. But it's an awesome piece of paranormal evidence. That's a closet. There's no room. Nobody can come from the outside. There was nobody else in the room but these guys.
It's maybe 2 feet deep.
Yeah.
That door is the depth of the closet. And there's nothing in there except Christmas wrapping paper. Like, there's absolutely nothing in there, so. And there's no way to get it around. And like I said, none of them reacted to it. So,
The next photo was taken at the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion, which is in this book here, down in the basement. This is out in Gardner, Mass, not too far from here. The S.K. Pierce Mansion is super haunted too. This was a selfie taken with my cell phone, with a phone facing me, not with a flash or anything like that. I grabbed this kid, Ben, who was investigating with us, and Ben put on some selfie, snapped the picture, pushed him over there, turned around, took a picture of everybody else that was in the room because they were all in front of me when I snapped the photo. That over Ben's shoulder, I have no idea what it is. It's an anomaly in the photo. You can see the next picture here. I've sent this picture off to photographers. I'm a skeptical believer. I need to know what's in the picture. I want to know what it is because it wasn't a person. And I didn't see it when I took the picture, and nobody else saw it when we were snapping the picture, and everybody was in front of us. Lauren wasn't there that night. She saw it in the photos the next day when I was showing her the pictures. She goes, "What's that?" I go, "What's that?" I go, "I have no idea." And it freaked me out. And I actually, Ben is about 17 years old. His dad was there. I called his dad up and I said, "How's Ben doing?" He said, "It's fine, why?" I said, "I'm going to send you something, okay?" And I sent him the picture, and he called me. He goes, "What the heck is that?" I said, "I have no idea." That's why I asked you if Ben's okay today, because I don't know what this was. A lot of people asked if he had something in his backpack. I didn't bring the pictures with me, but I have other photos of him with, there's nothing in his backpack. I'm the first person to want to shoot holes in
It
photos.
looks like it could be E.T.
What is that?
Kind of like an alien. It's creepy.
Isn't it? Doesn't it though?
Like, it looks like it could be E.T.
Yeah. Some people go, "Oh my God, it's got a horn." I'm like, I like to think of it as if you think something was like manifesting, like almost dropping down like this. That would be the point of manifestation.
that looks like Batman from the side.
Does it? Maybe it's Batman. Isn't that interesting though? The next slide is just a picture. We talked earlier about that, capturing that EVP with Nick Roth in Salem, in the basement of the firehouse. So this was the basement of the firehouse. The significance of this is, everybody knows Salem for witches, and the witches area. In 1914, Salem had a huge fire and lost a lot of buildings downtown, and a lot of historic homes. And there were some people that were killed too. The story, as it goes, is this old fire station, which is right there in the center of town, became a temporary morgue. They brought bodies in, put them, because it was winter time, cold storage in the basement, in this one little cubby hole. That's the cubby hole that we were in when we did our EVP session with Nick. This is just, so this night here, if you've ever watched Ghost Adventures, and most of you have, but one of the things about them is they always have something happen. Something always gets thrown at them or something like that. And I'm always like, "Oh, I know whatever, okay." Standing there with Nick that night, and something gets thrown at him. It hits the wall next to him, and it's a rock.
It was
And I'm like,
because I was here and he was there and like, ching. I was like, what the hell was that?
and I looked at him, I'm like, "It's true, and it's you." I'm like, "It's you that gets it done all the time. What the heck?"
It's a pebble or something, but it was a good size because it made it like hit the ground and then hit off the wall. So it was a good size.
So, I know it's not a super exciting lecture, guys. I really appreciate that you came out and listened to us. I'm passionate about history. I'm super passionate about the paranormal. And finding out how we got to where we are right now, and not just a bunch of people running around going, "I'm a ghost hunter, what happened?" This is how we got here. There were pioneers in this field that were like, back in the day, think of how gutsy it was during a spiritual era when you talk about God and everybody's worshiping someone, and someone comes along and was like, "I think some people are faking. I want to talk to ghosts." How crazy is that at that time, where people were looking and be like, that, well, if you do that, you're walking with the devil, you know? Well, no, you're curious about stuff, and you want to know more. So, you know, like I said, appreciate that you guys kind of hung in there for it. I'm curious to know if you guys have questions, and it doesn't have to be on topic with our lecture itself. Do we have questions about the paranormal or any?
I have a question about the feel of the pyramid.
Yeah.
Like, I'm from the deep south, and down there are women of all different ages, where you go to them and they can, you know, kind of not directly speak to somebody, but they have intuition, and it's a very feminine energy. But I see man after man after man. Where are the ladies at?
Very good question. So the question basically is, there's a lot of guys in the paranormal, where's all the women? You know, what's going on?
Right here.
There's two right back here, absolutely 100%. Very good friend of ours, too. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. So there's a ton of women in the paranormal, and they're not just all psychic mediums. They're investigators. Unfortunately, when we talk about paranormal entertainment, talk about the TV shows, the guys are in. And it sucks, or stinks, if that's the end of it. So it stinks, because we know a ton of really talented paranormal investigators that are women, and unfortunately, it's who's going to watch the TV shows, you know, who's really paying attention. Believe it or not, yeah, a lot of guys watch the paranormal TV shows, but it's mostly women watching. And mostly women want to see the guy with muscles in a t-shirt. Unfortunately, right? And it's funny, but it's true. You know, it's true. And it does become a male-dominated segment when you watch the TV show.
The history, you talked about there was the one wife of the demonologist.
Right. So, think about this. Think about the role that women played, unfortunately. I'm not condoning anything like that. But think about the role that women were always in the background. Women was always, no, you do. This ties in beautifully with, when we did an event at Penhurst Asylum in Spring City, Pennsylvania. It was well named Amber State. Well, you know, some of the state schools that you'll find around in mental things, like maybe there's a hospital near here, you could throw a stone at. There's a lot of these places that we found online, reasons to drop your spouse off. Reading a novel.
No, it was, yeah, your wife.
Your wife, yeah, sorry,
Wife.
your wife. Reading a novel. Like, your wife's reading a novel, throw her in a mental institution. How dare she? Your wife cooked a bad meal, bring her to Danvers. And you could do that.
I like my neighbor's wife better, I'm bringing my wife in.
As a man, you could do that and bring your wife to a mental hospital and drop her off and say, she's crazy, bye. And they took her in. And now this fully functioning member of society is now amongst folks maybe who can't take care of themselves. And that brings a person down. That breaks a person. So now this perfectly fine functioning member of society gets broken down. Or never does get broken and lives a horrible life in the conditions that they're in. These state schools had tons of good intentions, and most of them fell far short of that very quickly in history, very quickly. And it's a shame, and that these doctors, and I talked about it last night, right down in Waltham at the Fernald School, they were experimenting in the 70s on children with radioactive Cheerios, cornflakes.
And with
And oatmeal, yeah.
sponsored program
Yep,
for the science club.
Yep. They were feeding kids, unbeknownst to them, radiation to find out what the effects would be. Now,
Parents signed off on it
yep,
because they weren't getting part of the science.
Yep.
They thought they were learning.
exactly. Now, that's not paranormal, but us going there today and needing to know the history of that and learning that, when I go into a location like that, what am I going to do? I'm not going to go in looking to talk to demons or what. I want to find out if they knew what was happening. I want to find out what their emotional attachment might still be to the building and why they're there. And then we need to have that knowledge, you know?
In addition to that, I was going to add to that, in addition to that, unfortunately what happened was, you did have women that were prominent in the paranormal. You had Madame Blavatsky, who she was like one of the forerunners of theosophy, right? And then you have Ethel Myers, who worked with Hans Holzer. So you did have these women that were very prominent in that part of the research, but you also then had like the Fox sisters, you had the charlatans. So you had a lot of women who were, yeah, I was psychic because I need to make money to feed my kids, you know, and unfortunately those took the cake, they took the headlines rather than the other two. So that helped feed a lot of too. So a lot, do have a lot of, there are still a lot of psychic mediums, you know, and it's just my intuition, like a mile away, I'm not psychic body, that body. But, you know, they're telling people things that aren't necessarily untrue, but are at the same time are not accurate. And how do you weed them out? How do you tell? How can you tell? You know, so that's another part of research. You know?
Do you know anything about a guest house in Vermont that's haunted bedroom? Have you ever heard anything about it?
I'd have to have the name. I've heard, there's a lot of stories out of Vermont. So the question is about a haunted guest house in Vermont, and there are a lot of stories.
Well, I actually stayed in the bedroom.
What was the name of the building?
I can't remember.
Did you have things happen when you stayed there?
I was open then and I'm open now, and I don't feel one way or the other, I'm just open. And I didn't hear any noises, but there was something that happened. It was just something that came over me. Maybe I brought it on myself, or maybe it really was something, but it scared the crap out of me.
It can be. If you're not looking for it, it can be very unnerving and very scary when something happens. Absolutely. There's been times where I've, you know, look, human reaction, you have a fight or flight mechanism in your body, you know? Yeah, good run. Yeah, say go something. There's fight or flight in your body. Something enters your space and you're in the pitch black. You're doing one of two things. You're swinging, or you're like, I'm out of here. You know, you're running away. And there are the moments where your flight instinct kicks in, and then you take a moment of, oh, I was an idiot. Why did I run from there? Okay. I can't tell you how many times, you know, we watch a video of one of us and something's like, you're in the same room, you know there's a person in the room, and they like reach over, you've been sitting there for like 20 minutes, all of a sudden they're like, you know, oh my God, you're sitting next to me, that's right. We all do it. We're not for scary cats, but just that your body does it. Like, get out of here. So.
An interesting thing we're talking about for now, we actually investigated out near the school, and
You trespassed?
we trespassed front, yeah, I swear. But we were out there, we were using electronics, we were asking questions, and we asked, you know, about the science club, you know, what the science club was, and all we kept getting clear as day was milk.
Wow.
And that's what it was,
Yeah.
radioactive.
Radioactive milk.
And with the oatmeal, and that was the whole thing.
Yep.
So it was kind of, we were trying to disprove that electronics doesn't work, and
Yeah, not backfired.
it really backfired. We were just like,
So they're talking about an app that you can get on your cell phone called Echo Box. And I was one of the first people to see it. The guy who created it's crazy as, oh my God. it's
But brilliant, and that's why I think that's really nuts, brilliant.
But Echo Box, you can download it on your cell phone. It does cost money. I do not get royalties. But it's, we talked about the spirit box earlier. Basically, all it is it's two people sat down and read an Edgar Allan Poe book, and then they took that reading of the book. It looks like this on your phone. They took that reading and chopped it up into nothing more than a one-syllable word. So you will not get sentences through Echo Box. You should not get intelligent answers, technically. You should just get gibberish.
And your phone, yeah.
Yeah, there's no word bank. You can put your phone in airplane mode. It doesn't connect to the internet. It's simply just this random soup of words. Why I use this and swear by this is I've had people like John who have heard their dead relative talk to them. Not just like, oh, it's, who am I talking to? Ed. Oh, it's Ed, we're talking to Ed. No, that's Ed's voice. Like the tonality of the voice comes through. They didn't have Ed sit down and read this book. They had two people read the book. I think since he's added a third bank in there too, but there's no reason that people should hear their deceased relative talking to them with their voice through this device. And I've witnessed it on countless occasions where it's happened. I don't recommend, if you're just curious, downloading and taking it, because if you do, you're going to probably have more activity than you want out of it. Because think about like a light on the porch, and you turn it on, and a bunch of moths come flying to it, right? You're gonna get more things. One of the things this has taught me is that just because we have a preconceived notion of where we are and what we're trying to investigate, does not mean we're gonna get that. We've gone to Gettysburg countless times. I think maybe once we've talked to a Civil War soldier. Every other time it's been something to do with somebody that we're with. It's been crazy. So just because now at that point in time, I look at it and I go, well, I know we're here to talk to Civil War people. We gotta get off that. We gotta start talking about who's talking to us rather than what we wanna talk about. I know it sounds super far-fetched, guys, but if I could share with you some of the stuff that we've done with Ed. So I mentioned Ed earlier. Through Echo Box is how we had our conversations with Ed Warren. And he identified himself, not me identifying, hey, you Ed Warren. He said his name, Ed Warren, which I then brought to John, which then, since then, we've had many conversations with John Zaffis and his deceased uncle Ed through Echo Box. And I can't explain why it happens, guys. At that time, I couldn't tell you why it was us that he came to. But this is what we try to do as paranormal investigators, right? At first, we were trying to prove that there's something beyond, there's something on the other side. There are people to talk to. Now we've got somebody that people knew alive, who was a notable figure who was communicating through tools like this. We got that piece. Now what? Now what do we do with it? It's because now it's like, are you going to believe me just in telling you? Probably not. Eventually we're going to have to put it out there so people can hear more of it. It's amazing.
Yeah, we bought it just to disprove it, and it backfired on us.
We use it all the time now.
Yeah.
It's, it can also, it can just answer us in other languages. So we've been in places where we get German.
We're in the barn.
Yeah,
That was German.
German. We had two people with us that spoke some German, so they were speaking with it, and we were getting answers in German, and I'm like, trying to look it up on my phone, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm writing the words down, like,
It's crazy. It's wild.
German, Greek, Italian, everything.
It's a truly unique tool, especially for paranormal investigators to use it. Like I said, if you're just curious, I don't recommend using it. That's why when it first came out, Danny, the guy who created it, lived in Nashville, New Hampshire. It was just a stone's throw from here. So, and he's crazy as that. But Danny, Danny, when he first brought Echo Box up, he was charging $99 because he didn't want everybody to have it. He only wanted the most serious people to download it and use it. And then eventually he saw they could make money doing it, so he dropped the price down to $29.99, and then everybody was using it, so, or $19.99, whatever it was. But he made it accessible to the people who, once he had it home. Yeah. Anyway, this isn't a spokesperson, infomercial for Echo Box.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Questions? Yeah.
What do you think of the Hollywood medium?
The Hollywood medium. So, I honestly don't know him that well. I haven't followed him. I've heard the name tossed around a few times. He got some bad press recently, I know that.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
What
he
was
got
that?
a little bit of bad press recently, but every medium does. That's the thing, I said this last night, you could do a medium, like Teresa Caputo could do 100 readings, right, and be spot on with 100 readings. They're not always gonna come to her. There's gonna be times, if you have a sold out arena, and you're not getting any messages, you might have a few people that are there to help move things along a little bit. So maybe she gets caught once doing that. That doesn't mean her other 100 readings weren't real. And that's one of the things that happened to the Hollywood medium I read recently was you got caught. But when you put yourself out there like that.
Listen, spirit doesn't always want to talk to you, so it doesn't always, they don't.
See, we have the luxury that we go on an investigation and nothing happens, nothing happens. For us, nothing happens. Our paycheck isn't dependent upon that, I haven't made a promise to people when we go and investigate a home. We never promise we're going to capture something. We're going to try and assist them, and, by all means, we never charge. We're not going to charge anybody because they can't prove it's going to happen. If you start charging, you better have results. And if you don't get results, then people will be like, oh, my money back. I paid you for 3 hours and I didn't see a thing. So, that stuff happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
I went to the Sorrel Weed House in Savannah, Georgia.
Yes.
I fell asleep.
You fell asleep?
I fell asleep.
Nothing happened?
That, Well, when we first got there, they, they take you around and say, this is room, this is the Sarah, little girl,
Yep.
on the new town, she wants to untie shoes. I was like, listen here, little girl, don't be touching my shoes, leave me alone. When we walked into that room, I got pushed. There was no one else around me. I was like, okay, which one of you people just circle around? They were like, yeah, okay. Wasn't me.
But you still fell asleep, wait a minute.
But then, then when we went through everything, then we went off on our own. I went and sat down on the couch and it was like, for 2 hours, I was asleep.
Really?
Everybody else had stuff going on. It was a friend of mine who was in another room and, yeah, no, I slept.
We had,
We had a lot of good evidence on
we did good. It started off very slow. I was kind of disappointed with how things started off. We did this for all the house last year.
Yeah.
Very disappointed with the way things started off there.
Yeah.
But it kicked up. We had a good spike of energy for a while, and then it just fell off again. And, we didn't get enough. We actually left a little earlier from the stadium.
I got attacked by those giant bugs.
Oh my God, those bugs are nuts.
Yeah, they said the girl upstairs, they got, talked to her or something. I was like, okay.
I got,
I wish we could play that, that would be cool on its way. It would.
no, I wouldn't translate well. Again, the acoustics, it's a good room to speak in, but the acoustics would bounce around too much. We love this room. I love Savannah. It's so beautiful down there. So, who's been down, so been to Savannah? Yes. I didn't know, I don't like to always do a ton of research when we go places. When we were down, I didn't know that all the squares are basically still cemeteries. Savannah has a bunch of squares, like little green spaces, every so many blocks. And each one of those squares, there's still people buried under there. There's still graves, like all over the city, from the Civil War. They were just buried still. It's crazy. I'm like, my God, every single one of these is just a bunch of buried people. Wow.
It's educational.
Yeah, oh my
I
God.
had a great time.
Yeah, I love it down there. I love it.
Any more questions? Oh,
Is
the
that
question
the
back.
Herman House?
No.
It's a McGiddy, right?
No, this
No,
is
no,
Savannah. But we've been in Gettysburg, yeah. That's the permanent house.
Yeah, I remember this.
Every question.
Yes.
Two questions, actually. SK Pierce,
Yeah.
now that they're doing all the renovations in it, does that have any impact, or has had any impact on the number of parkings or experiences, whatever you'll call it, since they've been doing all this work on it? Has anybody been back in there or done any investigation?
Yes. So yes, the question is, the SK Pierce Mansion in Gardner, Mass., they've been doing renovations. The house was in severe disrepair. And they've been renovating it back to this brand state, every single room in the house. It's done, by the way. They finished it. Last week they finished it. It's gorgeous. And yes, it has had an impact on activity. In my opinion, the activity's gone down.
I
They
agree.
still do have activity. It's not nearly as active when we investigated a few years back when it was still in disrepair. But there's still stuff going on there. It's not nearly as active as it was. But I mean, just knowing that stuff can still happen, oh God, it's so gorgeous. You've got to check it out.
Can you stay there? Just two.
Not yet. They're going to try and open it up as a bed and breakfast. I think they have a couple more hurdles to get over to do it, but they're getting it. So it's beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah, I went over there too.
Yeah. By the way, if you're really crazy, the Conjuring House is supposed to become a bed and breakfast at some point in time too.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So
I will.
I love Lizzie's. Oh my God, Lizzie's. That's crazy, crazy, crazy. I love them there. I did. Any other questions, guys? Yes.
Do you think animals sometimes sense things that people don't? The building that I live in used to be a farmhouse. It's hundreds of years old, where what used to be the barn. And I went to a talk by another paranormal investigator a couple years ago, and he's like, oh yeah, way back when they didn't have like mortuaries and things, they put the dead bodies in the barn. Oh, wonderful! But the only thing I've sensed is one time something flew off the table and there was nobody in the room. But you figure it's so old, somebody had to have died there at some point. Sure. Nuts. Like, grrr, and he'll growl and he'll run up to the loft and then he tries to walk the beams along the loft and then he'll run downstairs and run back to the spiral and he's freaking out. I'm like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So
It's happening
animals,
here.
animals absolutely are sensitive to things like that. And there's been experiments with dogs on investigations and whatnot to see if they pick up some sort of activity before the activity happens for the investigators. And it works. An animal's intuition is a little bit more heightened and different than us. You know, first of all, they're not predisposed. We as humans are very conditioned, right? Like we know, you hear a horn beep, you're supposed to look, or we just know that things happen for us because we're conditioned to react to them. Or we're conditioned not to believe in something, or we're, you know, it's just how we are. For animals, they don't have that. They don't have that block that we have. And they are much more open to these things than we are. You know, people talk about having spirit, like not spirit animals, like, hey, it's my spirit guy. But, you know, dogs show up, or cats on investigations that aren't there, hop up on the bed, or rub against their leg and stuff like that. That happens too. So yes, animals have spirits, or you know, energy that remains, and they're also super intuitive to activity. And that's very common, by the way. People will talk about their cats or dogs reacting to something that you don't see or hear. You know, and that's, you know, maybe for them it might sound like a whole bunch of noise going on, but for us, we don't just our level of hearing isn't in that range. Again, going back to frequency, and why recorders one will catch one won't. We don't hear in that frequency range. They do. So that's why they'll definitely have. We have a couple more. I think we have 5 minutes because it's a little fast up there. So, any other questions?
Oh, I was just going to ask, what experience have you had that made you say, I will never go back there again? Has there ever been something that scared you so bad that you would not step back to that place?
So the question is, have we experienced anything that we would never go back to? So far, no. I'm sure that there will be someday. But so far, I've not had that experience. There are places that I don't want to go back to, but I know that I have to, or someday will have to. The Conjuring House is one of those places I really don't want to tempt fate with. But I've got a feeling my path is going to send me back there someday. You know, what's the other place that I've
Have you been in Eastern States?
Yeah, I love Eastern State. I really do. During broad daylight, just because when you do this for as long, and I'm sure you guys have the same experience, when you do this as long as we have, your body becomes kind of intuitive to certain things, and you can feel energy and stuff like that. And we were with our friends who were like us, and we were walking through Eastern State, broad daylight. There was a girl who had a camera set up in this really odd spot. She was just snapping photos. And we all walked through near where she was snapping photos, and every one of us stopped and looked at each other like, you feel that? Like you felt as if you were walking into like just this like fence of energy. We walked in, we were all like, ugh. And we walked through and we sat there talking about it, and we realized that's what the girl's taking pictures of. Like she's snapping photos in that area that we walked in and felt that energy. And then we had asked her, like, can I ask what you're doing? She goes, you know, I just felt like I needed to take pictures here. And we're like, all right. So she feels it too. But so far, there's not a place that I felt like I don't want to go back to. I had such a cool life. Eastern State Penitentiary is in Philadelphia.
I was going to say, that because you did, when you got sick. We almost got sick.
So in Penhurst, I had an experience, but I stayed. I did have a very tough experience for me in Penhurst where I went into a room, and as I walked in, we were doing an event, and this room, I knew where it was. We had all come in and out of this room during the night. And towards the end of the night, I went to walk into the room, and I stepped on a toy car, a little Matchbox car, right in the doorway. I'm talking like smack in the middle of the doorway. And I'm like, who put that there? We've all come in and out of this room. One of us would have kicked it or stepped on it or something at some point during the night. Where'd this toy car come from? So I went around and I asked everybody. And I'm like, guys, nobody's in trouble. And we had 15, 20 people out there at that time. I'm like, nobody's in trouble. I have a question. Did anybody put a toy car in this doorway? And everybody said no. Everybody said no. So to me, now I'm going in this room and I think I'm going to go interact with a child. Because we're up in that area where the children were. And this is a toy car. So I'm thinking I'm going to talk to a child. And I went in there, and I'm standing in this room, pitch black, and I just felt the need to kneel down, so I squatted down to get to the child's level. And now I start talking to the kid about my kids. I'm telling them I'm a dad too, I have 2 little girls, and I start going on and on and on. And all of a sudden, it felt like this, the energy getting closer, and just like you know, my fight or flight's kicking in a little bit, and I'm sitting there like, I'm not gonna do either, I'm just gonna sit here. And all of a sudden, my heart started racing. And I'm like, and I said, I go, you gotta back up. You're too close to me. You're causing my body to do things right now. Like, I need to slow my heart down, I have to back up. And my heart wouldn't stop, and finally I like got up, I went and stopped Lauren, I'm like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta go outside. And I went outside, and I put her into a panic. And I went downstairs, I got outside and drank some water, and took a couple deep breaths, and I was fine. My heart stopped racing, you know, just because I broke the situation, and broke where I was, and got out of the area and fixed it. For me, that was the closest I'd come to going, I'm not going back in. You know, that was the closest I did get to that night, probably. But that was my so, yes.
What about Danvers State Mental Hospital?
Danvers State, so that's a spot I never got to go to.
I remember one time I went there with a friend just to like explore before the fire happened. And like I was taking pictures and the battery was fully charged. My battery stopped working.
Okay.
And it was like old in one of the like burn areas.
And that's very common. So battery drain is something that doesn't happen on investigations quite often because we believe that the spirits and ghosts are trying to take energy from around, and batteries have energy to help them manifest or cause activity. Danvers State is an interesting spot because, again, history, dig back into the history. That land was originally Judge Hathorn's land. Judge Hathorn had his house. Judge Hathorn was the hanging judge of witch trials. So Judge Hathorn's land was at Danvers State, which then became a mental hospital, or a state school or asylum, which now is condos. I would live there. So, I'm not going to live there. So it's like you're asking for trouble. That land is like, sure, none of the witch trial stuff happened on the land, but just to be associated with that, it's like, and for those who don't know the history, Danvers is where it all sort of began. That was Old Salem Village at the time. That's where the first accusations were made during the witch hysteria back.
Well, the public health museum over at the hospital that's close by,
Yep.
they actually have memorabilia from Danvers. They
Tried to go.
They actually have the old Danvers baseball uniform because apparently people that lived there could play baseball.
That's awesome.
They have some of the memorabilia, there's a lot of really cool stuff over there.
There are still tunnels over there in Danvers
Yes,
from
there
the old
is.
hospital, still underneath the condos and the grounds there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we visited the cemetery up there too.
There's two cemeteries, but I don't know the line with the second one.
I haven't been. Yeah, I don't think that much. Any other questions, guys? We're good?
What's your favorite investigation ever?
My favorite investigation, or our favorite investigation ever, I'd have to say is probably any one of the ones I couldn't mention up in North Adams. That place was so active. I had a lot of firsts there. I miss it because it changed hands and a private organization bought it and they don't do investigations anymore. Although I did see rumors that they might be considering opening up again, which I will be the first person through the door because I love that place. It sounds weird to talk about it that way. It's almost like Disneyland. It really is. I can't get enough of it. I really can't. Yes?
Even there's a Lizzie Borden house.
Yes, absolutely. This gentleman has a book over here saying Lizzie didn't do it. Yes, we did do Lizzie Borden once. We've gone in a couple times. So we used to, besides Salem Con, we used to host smaller events too. We got away from it for a while, just because of time. But we did an event at Lizzie Borden, and we had
overnight.
we did an overnight investigation. We let the audience, we bought tickets, you got the overnight stay too, and people were up till like 3 o'clock in the morning investigating, and we had some stuff happen. It's tough when you do event style stuff because there's a lot of people usually there. And you don't get a ton of activity typically because larger crowds. If you think about it, if you're in a crowd of people and they're looking for you to do something, you just kind of don't want to. You start to fade back a little bit.
Well, not just that, they're all asking you different questions, and you're like, I don't know who to answer.
So we don't always get activity in the bigger groups, but there are some spots like Lizzie Borden that we did. We had quite a bit of activity at Lizzie's house. We got a cool video. I have to find it again. Maybe put it on our website of myself, I was locking all the doors, and it was just myself and one of our investigators, Mike. We were going through, and I stopped in this room, the room Mr. Borden was murdered in. There's, if you're standing facing the front of the house, there's a door that goes to the rooms upstairs. There's a door to a sitting room where there's a piano, and that door was closed. And the only way in there was one other door coming from upstairs. So I stopped because the doorknob was jammed. And I stood there and I looked at it. He comes into the room and I did one of these, and he stopped and took his phone out and started recording. Because he knew it's like, you know, I'm like the pointer. I'm like, so we're looking at the doorknob and it's jiggling. And I waited and I said, you know, if that was you making this doorknob, can you do it for me again? And it started jiggling again. And then I'm like, let's hold on a minute, because I want to make sure a car goes by, so I'm like, let's make sure it wasn't like a noise from a car, nothing. And I said, please, I'm sorry to ask you, but one more time, can you please jiggle this handle again? The doorknob jiggled again. And I'm like, all right. I open the door, there's nobody. Because I was expecting somebody on the other side to be like, let me get it. Nobody. So that was, for me, stuff like that is the stuff where I'm like, yes, that's awesome. Yes.
Have you ever been to the woods out in Leicester or East Bridgewater?
So you're talking about like Hockomock Swamp and out in the Freetown Forest and the Bridgewater Triangle, right? So not quite, I wouldn't say I've gone out to the Hockomock or out to the woods yet. We've done investigations in the area. The Oliver House sits right on basically the Freetown Forest. So you can go up behind the Oliver House and get into some of the Bridgewater Triangle area there. But yes, we have done some investigations in the area. Yes, and the place is crazy active. There's an area of Massachusetts called the Bridgewater Triangle. Has anybody heard of that? Yes. So there's more and more lore and stuff coming out about the Bridgewater Triangle. This past June, the Indian Head, or the face of Massasoit, collapsed and fell apart. Now, if you remember New Hampshire, like a decade ago, the Old Man in the Mountain, which was, we call it the Old Man in the Mountain, that was actually Indian Head in New Hampshire. That fell off, because of weather and wear and stuff like that. So you look at that, and the similarities to what happened to Massasoit in the Freetown Forest and the Bridgewater Triangle, we're all watching it to see if this has kicked up activity, and it looks like maybe it has in some way. This is a piece of the heritage of the Wampanoags. This was not an idol, but this was a spot of, remembrance for them. So, and stuff like that happens. But yes, absolutely, it's an interesting area. I think we're tying out, guys. I know we're heading to about 8:30ish, so I hope you guys have power.